So, hello everyone. It's a pleasure to be hosting another translation and interpretation online workshop. Bruna and I are delighted to have you. Today we will be discussing Emily Dickinson's There Came a Wind Like a Bugle, and we're delighted to be joined by Renée Bergland. Renée, thank you so much for accepting our invitation and for being with us today. We don't really do we don't really do formal introductions, but you're very welcome to say a few words about yourself if you'd like to, what you're working on these days, anything you would like to. And then when you're ready, we would like you to read the poem for us and share with us, especially what draws you to this poem in particular, and say anything else you'd like to about this poem, and then we will open to discussion. Floor is yours, Renée.
Okay, great. Thank you. Thanks so much for showing up early for those of you who are to the west of me and late for those of you who are to the east. But it's wonderful that we get to speak to each other today. Um, so, as Axel said, my name's Renée Bergland, and am a f I'm fascinated by Emily Dickinson. Um, and I've been for a long time trying to work out Emily Dickinson and science, which has taken me in a lot of strange directions. I tried to write a book about Emily Dickinson's scientific education about 20 years ago, and it turned out to be a biography of the astronomer Maria Mitchell, who discovered a comet while Emily Dickinson was a student at Mount Holyoke. So I was like, okay, that isn't my Dickinson book. I'm going to try again. And then I tried again more recently and tried to write a book about Dickinson and science. And it turned out to be a book about Emily Dickinson and Charles Darwin and enchantment, disenchantment, reenchantment. There it is. Yeah. And right now I am scrambling to finish my third try at a Dickinson and science book. This one's called Poetry for a Burning Planet, Emily Dickinson's Guide to the Apocalypse. Um, and it's meant to be planetary and fundamentally environmentalist in some ways. It's meant to speak to the climate crisis. Um, I've been thinking a lot about apocalypse as I try to finish it up. Um, and the reason that I wanted to talk about this poem is one I've been fussing around with lately, because it's apocalyptic. I think it's a very bad storm. And then also it has that wonderful sort of twist at the end, which I'm sure we'll want to talk about. Um, which is sort of what comes after an apocalypse. Um, so let me read the poem, and then I'll talk just a little about some of as people were coming in, I mentioned that as I was picking it, I felt like maybe I was being mean because I felt like this one might be hard to translate. It's tricky. It's got some tricky elements to it. So I'll talk about some of what I thought were the questions or tricks that come up for me in the poem, and then I can't wait to hear what everybody has to say about it. Okay, so let me read the poem. There came a wind like a bugle. It quivered through the grass, and a green chill upon the heat, so ominous did pass. We barred the windows and the doors as from an emerald ghost. The doom's electric moccasin, that very instant passed on a strange mob of panting trees, and fences fled away, and rivers where the houses ran, those looked that lived that day. The bell within the steeple wild, the flying tidings told, how much can come and much can go, and yet abide the world. Um, So there are a few variants that Dickinson included with this one, but I'm not going to discuss them too much. I don't think they're significant meaning changes for the most part. Um, so first, I want to talk just a little bit about form. I um, I Amanda Lowe wrote a wonderful dissertation. I think she defended it last year on geopoiesis, where she talks about how the form of Dickinson's poems is often very geological, um, in that it's layered and compressed and sometimes erupts. And I love that idea. I think she's right about Dickinson's poetry often having a formal structure that on a really bare bones structural level expresses what the ideas of the poem are. And here, I think it's really interesting. When I read this out loud, um, I feel like I could be reading Longfellow's Sum of Life or something just really at the beginning. It's very regular, ballad, organized. It's the kind of well-organized meter and form in those first, let's say, 6 or 7 lines, where it feels very orderly. I actually experimented as I was getting ready for this. I tried to do that Helen Vendler trick where you make it a sonnet, where you put it into iambic pentameter. And it felt like it would work for the first part. And then it also feels that way very much at the end with if it were a sonnet, it would be the volta, right? Like that twist at the end, how much can come and much can go, and yet abide the world. That sounds like a very formal, regular twist. But in the middle, there's a tornado, right? And everything goes crazy for a while, and the meter gets odd, the syntax gets really confusing. Um, I, as I was sort of thinking about it, I really can't decide what to do with line 9, how to read it out loud, which is on a strange mob of panting trees, or upon a mob of panting trees if you go with the variant. But the reason I can't decide is that um, reading from the top as we do, it seems like it's the Doom's electric moccasin, whatever that is is sort of walking across that mob of panting trees. But then when you find yourself in line 12 with those looked that lived, there's another way in which, oh, that's what they're looking at. You have to kind of go backwards, and all of a sudden you're syntactically in a swirl where you really don't know whether that's what the moccasin is passing through or over, or what the eyes are looking on of the few who survive to tell the tale. It's very confusing, and what it's describing there is a confusion, right? Of a mob of trees waving around and being really strange. The fences flying away, the houses becoming rivers. Yeah, so I just think that total confusion at the center of this poem is probably what drew me to it originally, and what I was wondering what translators would make of. And then there's another thing that really drew me to the poem as well, um, which is the color green. Um, I have spent a lot of time in Western Massachusetts, and I've been there a few times when the sky turns green. And when the sky turns green, and this is true all over the world, not just in Western Massachusetts, that when the sky turns green, you really have to get inside right away. It's a real warning sign. And it means there's a really big storm, and what's happening is that the setting sun is shining through a giant storm cloud that's big enough that it filters out all the light except for the green light. It doesn't happen with a regular cloud. It only happens with a really big cloud. But when you see it, at first you think, wow, this is really beautiful and cool. The sky is green. And then you think, danger, danger, and try to get undercover as fast as you possibly can. It's not a long warning that you have. It happens, you see it, and then that green flash is over pretty quickly. Um, it's cool when that happens. I'm interested in it because it's an interesting meteorological phenomenon. But also, um, it's so different from all the other greens, right? Because green is usually um, growth and eco. And if we say that Dickinson is a green poet, we usually mean that she has a profound ecological sensibility, which I do think is true. Green is the color on a stoplight that means go, right? It's a positive, welcoming. Fitzgerald has a green light at the end of the dock, right? Over and over, green is just wonderful, welcoming, positive color. And here it's something completely different. It's the green um, in Harry Potter's world, it would be the green of Slytherin, the evil house. If it weren't Harry Potter's world, still a water moccasin is a really scary poisonous snake, right? So here we have that terrifying green, that danger green, but I think it's always going to be connected with the ecological green in ways that I find really fascinating. So I think I'll stop now talking about what I'm fascinated about. I have a lot more to say, but I also want to hear about some translations. And I know a few people prepared translations, or tried to rough out some translations. I'm curious which lines got you stuck, and how did that work for those people who spent some time trying to translate it?
Um, Axel, how do you want to go? Do you want to start with your Turkish translation? We can invite in and also comment on. We know we already have 3 persons in here who worked on translations of the poem. If I may start before I forget it, I've never seen a green sky like that. So I was wondering all the time what it would look like. So I like the description you gave of it and the fear that follows.
Yeah, it's so have you seen Bruna, have you seen the Northern Lights?
No.
So I've lived in Norway and I've seen the Northern Lights a few times, but I have this experience, I've had this experience where I'm walking around and everything just gets weird.
Mm.
And it takes a few minutes. Sometimes I don't even ever figure out that it was the Northern Lights, right? It's just everything gets weird. The light is weird. I'm like, wow, this is a really weird day. This evening is really strange. I don't know what's going on. And I have a hard time processing. I don't expect Aurora Borealis, and so I just don't expect to see it. Um, and that's often the first part of a Northern Lights is also a green sky and green light. But there's a big difference. So the green light of the Aurora Borealis is it makes you feel like you're in a magical world. It feels
Mm.
very magical. Um, the green light before a storm um, does not feel magical. It feels very, very ominous. It really just she describes it so
Yeah,
well.
very chill.
The green chill
Hmm.
upon the heat. It's like it's just like really scary, not magical. Or at
Hmm.
least that's been my experience.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um,
Mm.
Dan, have you seen a green sky? You're muted, my dear.
Um, yes, in the Midwest, the green sky in of the U.S. means a tornado, this is and I don't know if there are tornadoes in the same way in Western Massachusetts. Much more rarely. Here we get them multiple times a summer, and that green chill does make you bar the windows and the doors, whether as from but it's a sickly green and it's a frightening green. There's nothing beautiful about it. You know you need to get out of the way.
Yeah, so how do you translate that? Well, I mean,
Yeah.
she puts it with chill, the green chill. Um,
Well, but for me that translating that into which of my multiple languages I don't know, but in the green chill upon the heat is literally what happens in a tornado. That a cold front moves into a warm front and starts swirling. That heavier air starts swirling through the lighter air. So this poem has always just been purely a tornado for me. I struggle with Doom's electric moccasin, um, but because I don't think of a moccasin as electric. Eels, yes, but moccasins, no. Um, I mean, it's a figure for lightning and doom associated with lightning, but I don't know how to get all of that into a compressed translation.
I was just wondering whether this tornado green has to do with the season, because if I'm not mistaken, this poem was written in summer, in 1883 summer. So is that something that occurs more frequently in summer, or can it occur anytime during the year, or?
No, it's especially a summer phenomenon.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So uh, it, this is one of the things that Dickinson is so amazing at, right? Is translating science into poetry. And I think her meteorology is really pretty accurate here. These images are sort of, yeah, as Dan was saying, really quite accurate about how the weather behaves. But so in order to get the green sky, you need really, really very thick layer of clouds that go very high, sort of thunder clouds that go really, really high, which, yes, they only happen in summer. Native Native Americans had a tradition of, in many tribes, of not telling stories after the first thunder until the last thunder of the year. So stories for many tribes were winter things. And then from the first thunder, no more stories. So that was dividing the year into two halves, the thunder half and the not thunder half. But so yeah, it's mostly summer. In 1883, there were massive tornadoes in the Midwest that I think Dickinson read about that killed hundreds of people. And there are lots of photos, because it's the 1880s and there are now news photos and things. There are lots of photos of just flattened towns and things like that she probably had seen. I don't think there was a big tornado like that in Western Mass at the time. Um, I in the past 10 years, there have been quite a few tornadoes in Western Massachusetts. It's part of climate change, so now it's more possible, but then it probably was pretty rare for her to experience tornadoes herself. She
Right.
might have seen one, but probably pretty rare.
I've
But,
never,
but the people, let's go ahead.
sorry, I think I cut someone off.
No,
Okay,
please.
I've never seen a green sky, although I spent a summer in Amherst. So I just Googled it, wondering whether it would look ominous if you didn't know what it portended. Yes, I thought it looked very ominous.
Absolutely. I learned about the green sky from experience. I saw the green sky, got terrified in Western Massachusetts. Then there was a tornado, and then I learned about it. I was like, oh.
People in this poem know what's coming. It's
Yes,
ominous, so nothing has happened yet, and yet they bar the windows and the doors, or as we might have done in Ohio, put tape. If it's going to be really bad, you put tape over the windows to hold the glass together so it doesn't shatter, or you shut the shutters. But it's a familiar, it's a routine thing. Thinking about Dorothy and her family going down into the storm cellar.
oh yeah, no, one of the things I wanted to mention is Dorothy and the Emerald City, right? That there's a reason
Right.
it's an Emerald City. It's because it's on the other side of a tornado.
On the other side of a tornado, of course.
Yeah.
I'm wondering
Question.
about, yeah, go ahead.
Are there other associations with emerald, the mineral, the gem, that might be considered here?
I'm sure there are. Do you have an idea, Emily?
Um, I did a quick look, but I'm not sure. I'm still looking for sort of a 19th century idea. It's the birthstone for May. And It appears to symbolize renewal, spiritual enlightenment, and some other things, but nothing that seemed to fit. I mean, it sounds like Emerald City makes the most sense given the emerald green of the sky.
I'm thinking about the line, the preposition and an emerald heat, and how you would, because English fudges prepositions in a lot of ways. We use prepositions that don't make any sense. And so I was just trying to play with, say, a French translation. Froideur vert. I'm not sure about that, but upon the heat, is that layering as the literal weather phenomenon would be, or the green chill penetrating the heat, or dispelling the heat, or menacing? Yeah, that what how would you render that? How you render the preposition changes what you understand happening, it would seem. And nothing's going to get it exactly whatever we see in upon the heat. And why did it pass?
Yeah, what is that passing? The passing happens twice.
That very instant passed.
Yeah. So, Axel, can you share your screen and show us your translation? Is that possible, or is it not written out?
Yeah, sure. I was just going to say something just before I present my translation. I was just going to say that I find it extremely difficult, nearly impossible to translate the word chill in any language that I can think of because it has so many meanings, and and green chill. It was really difficult for me to translate. And also, I just want to point out that I didn't know what a bugle was before reading this poem. I didn't know this instrument. I didn't know. When I saw it on the Google, I recognized it, but I didn't know that it was called bugle. So I had to look up for Dickinson's bugles in her poems and letters, and it seems quite interesting. I learned quite a lot of things. But first, I will share my screen so that you can see my translation. Um, can you see it?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. Yes. So, uh, for me the biggest perhaps challenge was to translate bugle because it doesn't exist in Turkish, and so I had to find a similar instrument which doesn't really exist either, and so there will be one word. So the word bugle here is kalk borusu. So it's like it's actually the military horn to say wake up, basically. The more ordinary translation will be to replace it with another instrument, which would be borazan. It's a similar instrument, but it just doesn't give me the sense of emergency here. So I think there's an emergency. The wind comes up in a very abrupt manner. So when I translated as in Turkish, bir rüzgar çıktı kalk borusu gibi, I just wanted to I just wanted to give this effect of, so just get up. There's something terrible going to happen right now. At least reading the poem, it gave me this impression. So I'll just read my translations first, and then we can perhaps discuss other things. So bir rüzgar çıktı kalk borusu gibi, çayırı titreyip geçti. Ve sıcağın üzerine yeşil bir ürperti öyle uğursuzca çöktü ki pencereleri kapıları kapattık. Zümrüt bir hayaletten kaçar gibi. Kıyametin elektrik mokaseni soluk soluğa tuhaf bir ağaç kalabalığının üstünden tam o anda geçip gitti. Çitler savruldu ve evleri sürükleyen nehirlere o gün yaşayanlar dönüp baktı. Çan Kulesi'ndeki divane, Çan, Uçuşan haberler salıkverdi. Niceleri gelir ve daha niceleri gider. Ama yine de sağ kalır dünya. So for me, the I mean, the fact that what you just said, the repetition of past, it was complicated because there were other phrasal verbs in Turkish where I had to use this verb. So there were too many passes occurring in my translation. So I had to eliminate or at least find some alternatives for these verbs. And um, obvious difficulty is how to translate moccasin, the snake and the shoe. I mean, it's just, and as I was reading the poem, I was wondering whether, because I didn't know what color the snake was, I was wondering whether it has some yellow or some greenish, um, tints, or I didn't know what it looked like. So I was thinking whether she was thinking of some sort of a thunder. Why a moccasin? Why this particular symbol? And why is it only referring to the snake, or is she also referring to the shoes, or is there a relationship between them, or that was a difficulty? And electric. I mean, this was why I thought of thunder. I mean, I just couldn't connect the doom, the electric, and moccasin in another meaningful way personally. So I was just thinking about that. Um,
Can I
and
interrupt for a second?
yeah, please do.
I want to say, I think there's to me, a bit of I think I'll just go ahead and say racist element to this as well. I think
Okay.
that it's not a slipper, it's a moccasin, which is connected to Native American
Yeah.
people. And I think that what one of the things that's being called forth here is the a sneaky attack on white settlers by Native people who are creeping up to the house very quietly in order to attack, I think. But I
Okay.
take that for what it is.
Okay. That's
Yeah, that image is in Margaret Fuller, one of Margaret Fuller's Summer on the Lakes essays, probably at the beginning, that she associates the Niagara Falls, the fear that the rapids, I think, conjure up in her as the same completely irrelevant fear that um, she comes up with, imagining stealthy Native Americans with tomahawks coming up and to chop her up in her sleep. Axel, is the moccasin there? So there are no moccasins in the old world yet, that your translation just mocassini. Is that
yeah.
right?
Yeah, that's true. And I was just looking up the French translation,
That's the,
this is the French translation I have here is the Françoise Delphi one. I don't know which one you have. I have the other one as well, but the one that the physical
Mhm.
book I have here is the Françoise Delphi one, and there. She translated directly as she said serpent directly as snake, and she didn't. I mean, she didn't mention moccasin as she didn't have this. She didn't give this semantic openness. So that was interesting to me in French. But in Turkish, it's just I mean, it doesn't exist, and actually, it doesn't mean anything. I mean, if a Turkish person reads this poem, wouldn't understand anything why moccasin is mentioned here. It just doesn't register. And that's a limitation in terms of translate. I mean, we can translate as much as we want, but if the image or the thing or the context doesn't exist in the other language to which we're translating, it will always be a mystery. Which to
Right.
me it was to a certain degree as well, as you witnessed.
Right.
So yeah.
Is there a is there like a quiet shoe that you wear when you're going to attack somebody? You know what I mean? Like a military or like sneaky terrorist shoe. I don't know.
Yep. Yeah. Yeah.
Sure.
I
Probably.
would have the same issue. Does barefoot count? That would be the way here, I think.
Really?
Going barefoot so you don't make any noise.
Right, right.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I totally agree with Axel on moccasin. I I learned about it being a snake when I was checking for meanings of moccasin, because with first reading of this poem, I was thinking about the shoe, and I couldn't understand why, like what it was doing in this poem and what the reference and all that.
Hmm. And I was thinking, I thought the adjective wild, I mean, is it the bell that is wild, or is it the steeple that is wild? I was a bit confused there as well. So I didn't really know how to connect it, to be honest. And this is where I use the Dickinson dash, so that I give this I leave this rather open. So Çan kulisindeki divane çan, which sort of works in a way that it could. So the wild refers. So the word wild here is divane, which is a word that is used also in some Sufi mystic traditions and contexts. So it's like this. It's not just wild in the sense, in the natural sense, but it's wild in a more mystical, maybe religious sense. So it could be the steeple, but it could also be the bell. So the bell here is chan. So I used the dash, which wasn't there in the poem, to have this ambiguity. I thought it worked, at least for me. But yeah, I don't know what you think about this.
That's really interesting. You say it's a sort of a Sufi
Yeah,
word.
yeah,
So
yeah,
a sense of sort of release from the ordinary,
yeah,
release.
yeah, yeah. That's it. Yeah.
Because in some ways, I'm thinking that that's a moment in the poem. Why is she talking about the bell and the steeple at that point?
Mm,
Because in the lines after that, things are going to taper down a little bit.
mm,
How much can come and much can go, and yet abide the world. The world, everything's actually okay. She sort of seems so at the end.
mm, mm,
And maybe that's a moment, the wildness of the bell is now telling tidings. And we've got the tidings that are there at the beginning of the poem.
mm,
Um, the bugle that says it's an alarm. You've got to get up. You've got to do stuff. You've got to tape your windows. And now the tidings are being told by the steeple bell,
mm,
which apparently is the steeple still standing. The bell is still ringing,
mm, mm,
and God's in his heaven and all's right with the world. It's almost as though she's trying to, yeah, everything passes.
mm,
And in a way, it seems to me that the Sufi image might be perfect
mm,
there. That this tremendous release, but also within a kind of containment, an orderly containment.
mm.
I don't know.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. This is exactly my thinking.
Cool.
And in the last three lines, actually, it just made me think about the very fact that, I mean, what is the world for Emily Dickinson? Because everything else is happening in the world as well. But why there yet abide the world? This was interesting. So the world here is the last word in Turkish as well. It's dunya. I don't know, Bruna, is it the same word in Albanian, or maybe you might be familiar with that word, but
Yeah, we use dunya, but it's very colloquial, and kind of old people who weren't educated would
okay.
call the world dunya.
Because I think dunya is a word in Turkish, but I think its origin must be in Arabic. If I'm not sure, I have to look it up, but I think so. It's not an etymologically Turkish word, but yeah.
Now, how does that change it? That if it's a word old people, perhaps uneducated people use,
Um,
what dimensions of the world are they pointing to?
Yeah, I'm glad you asked, because now that Axel posed the question, I was thinking about how it would be a very good word, because it gives this foreignness, a world that you don't know about, that's beyond what you know as familiar, which would be different from the world, the standard word we have for the world, which is bot. So it will give some connotation, I would say. But then, as I said, I wonder if younger people now understand that connotation. My generation would definitely, and some younger than me, but the young people probably haven't heard the word mentioned. It wouldn't be recorded anywhere in writing.
Oh,
Unless a
interesting.
character in an old Albanian novel set during the Second World War or even earlier.
Go
Love
ahead,
that.
Emily. Yeah,
Hmm?
you raise your hand.
I did. I wanted to kind of go back a little bit to the bell in the steeple wild, to the line just before that. Those looked that lived that day, echoes for none see God and live in
Wow.
scripture. And it feels to me like a turn in that the tornado has rushed through, the fences have fled away, the rivers where the houses ran, and then those looked that lived, or the alternate, the living looked that day. And the bell generally signals a change, an all clear, an emergency. A bugle, which by the way has no valves and is entirely controlled by the wind of the player, is an alarm or a signal of some kind, and in particular a military one. And the bell is used in a community to call people in, to toll after a death. And the flying tidings, which I initially took as the tidings of the tornado approaching, feels now, looking at that previous line, as a conclusion to the horrors and a kind of a taking stock of what has transpired, if that makes any sense.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I love the story of Edward Dickinson waking up the whole town by ringing the bell because there were a big display of Northern Lights. Um, and Dickinson wrote a letter about it, and she's like, "Oh my gosh, I love the story." And so I guess that's what that reminds me of, which I think fits with what you're saying, Emily, because it's like that story is a story of her father ringing the bell to wake everybody up so they can see something beautiful, right? It's like, it's so beautiful, you have to wake up, right? Um, and this bell, I think, is trying to do something similar to that. It's after the storm. It's trying to get people to look at the abiding world somehow. Um, yeah.
Could I say I was thinking the same thing? And I checked the date of that occasion when the ringing of the bell, her father did that for the town to see the lights, was 1851. So it had happened. And the lights, often during a northern aurora borealis, the sky changes color. So it's different, but yeah, lovely.
So, Dominic, do you also want to say the other comment? I saw it after we discussed the moccasin.
No.
Okay,
I'm a quiet listener. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I could read it out loud. There's a comment Saudamin made earlier. Interesting, it is electric moccasin. The line "so ominous did pass" resonated for me with the notice to the startled grass. The darkness is about to pass.
Yeah.
Yeah, passing is interesting, right? It's happening, but it's guaranteed to be over, but it's very progressive. It's an interesting verb.
Well, and another instance of wind in Dickinson involves the grass. The wind begun to rock the grass, I think it is.
Right. Yeah, yeah.
I'm interested in what people translating did with "on a strange mob of panting trees." Because like moccasins, whatever kind, they're not really electric, and so though I do think of a good description of an electric eel in Humboldt's Travels, where he actually wants to see how an electric eel works, and so he sticks his hand into a vat where there's an electric eel, and it quite literally almost kills him, and he's revived by the local medicine man in I think he's in. Anyway, but the strange mob of panting trees, what all did mob signify for her in 1883? Because, in 1848, the mob would have been one thing, and I dare say they would have panted. What do you do when you try to translate that?
I don't know if I could take this one. I did look up a few meanings of mob, and I was playing around with what word of Albanian to use for that. I saw it as a group. I don't know if I was correct in seeing it that way, like grouped together. And then I was thinking about what kind of purpose do I give this group now? Yeah. And I think I have two versions, a handwritten one I keep writing on top of it. And the final, or the one that I prepared to share in here, I've just used the general word for crowd. But that's a line I didn't, there were other lines I was thinking more about than this one, but I do remember going and looking for synonyms in Albanian to see the purpose of the grouping. I thought
I
more
think I
about
can gloss
painting
on
and
that.
everything. I'm sorry, Emily?
Sorry.
No.
I think I can provide a gloss on that in the like the Webster's. And this is not the complete. Mob, the noun, is a crowd of promiscuous multitude of people, rude, tumultuous, and disorderly. A disorderly assembly. It's also a huddled dress. And the verb is to attack in a disorderly crowd, to harass tumultuously. And then in terms of dress, to wrap in a cowl or veil. So I guess demobbing in the British sense is, shedding the uniform and going back to civilian dress. But a mob, a group, is ominous in that it is attacking, and it is doing it not in an organized manner, but in a disorganized, tumultuous way. Now, what that has to do with the trees and why they're panting, I'm thinking of the panting ankle in of tribulation, these are they. And yeah, it's an odd use of the word yet again.
It's interesting. I didn't even realize that I was thinking this way, but in Norwegian, it's a verb. Mob means to bully. It's bullying. So all schools have like their anti-mobbing programs and stuff. It's so I've always thought of a mob as just incredibly negative, right? But I realize that's probably because to me it has that other connotation of bullying. It's what bullies do is they mob somebody.
Well, that's definitely the first connotation in Webster as well. And when I think of mob, as a group of people, it is ominous.
Right, a group of people who've come together to attack or bully.
And without necessarily leadership, and with a conglomeration of intent that is ill.
Right.
Nasty.
Panting makes me think of dogs. But with that association, the trees become part of the menace that, the threat of this wind is kind of dispersed onto everything out there in that line, isn't it? On a strange mob of the trees weren't strange or panting or a mob until the wind in them happened. And I've had been thinking of the trees as vulnerable as it's a poem about being vulnerable to things on some sense, but and the houses are being swept away by rivers like the mudslides in California and so forth. And the trees are panting after you, which is
Oh my gosh. Yeah, it happened. We got caught in the woods a couple years ago in a really, really bad storm where these very large white pines started to move a lot. And yeah, it was with my husband and my dog, and the tree started to move a lot. I mean, it was a really big storm. There was a lot of wind and thunder and stuff. And we were we thought we were taking shelter under a tree, but then a couple of trees fell, like, and it's very loud when a big tree falls. And my husband and I were like, okay, if we die, do we want to die waiting? Or do we want to die trying to run and escape? And we decided to run. But as we were running, the trees were moving. And they were, yeah, it was totally terrifying. We didn't die. I still don't know if we made the right decision or not. Should we have just waited in one spot? Which is more risky? I don't know. But the terrifying windblown trees, I can totally visualize.
But
And
also, if I could, because the tree, in a storm like that, you don't want to be under a tree if it's struck by lightning. And the Doom's electric moccasin, I took it to be lightning. It's coming with that ominous immediacy that lightning comes and goes, because lightning also has a kind of emerald ghost about it. So there was, I don't know if the translators referred to lightning or not, but.
well, and the lightning coming through the base of the tree's moccasin, the tree's foot, as it were. And pant in Webster is to palpitate, to beat with preternatural violence or rapidity. And if you think about what happens with trees in a heavy storm, is not only are they swaying violently, and kind of mobbing together and in a disarray, then there's also the effect of the ground loosening and that wind taking them, roots and all, over.
Right, right.
So it's definitely, it certainly captures the effects of a vicious storm, a tornado. I've survived at least one tornado and several hurricanes, and yeah, it's not fun.
I'm seeing, I mean, I looked through the poem and thought how I would do certain words in French, which is the only other language that I have any kind of mastery, and I didn't really find until we're looking at it now how many really difficult lines there would be. So, and rivers where the houses ran. I mean, Renée talked about the line following that, but that and rivers where the houses ran, a whole lot happens in that poem if you look at it, right? Rivers run where the houses were is one parsing of it, but that's not quite what it says, that the houses are running and now the houses are, in the house is like the solid town. They're supposed to be the stable thing. Well, all the stuff she did with the windows and the doors didn't help. The houses ran, and again, I'm thinking of these houses in California being swept away in the mudslides all the time. Rivers where the houses ran, that's not what a house is supposed to do. And now there are just rivers. And so it's almost as though there's a sequence of events compressed into that one line where the house was hopefully going to be stable, and then the houses start to run, and then now there's only rivers where those houses were hitherto stable, had been running and sliding away, and now it's just rivers everywhere you turn, and the fences have fled away, and just one thing after another, and everything's washed to pieces there.
Right.
Dan,
Yeah.
Yes?
is the Is houses necessarily the subject of the verb ran?
Yeah.
No.
I wonder if we're talking about rivers running along a street lined with houses.
Oh, sure.
Oh, so what I want to say, I mean, and this is actually what I love about the poem, is that I really think those lines right there, 9, 10, and 11, on a strange mob of panting trees and fences fled away and rivers where the houses ran. I think that there is syntactical chaos there. I really think that it's almost impossible to decide which subjects, which verbs, what the referents are. And what I really like about the poem is that I don't think that's true before, and I don't think it's true after in this poem. But right there, it's just so hard to decide. I mean, I do think that, so to answer your comment, Emily, I do think the houses are running and the rivers are running. Like it's
and the rivers are running. I mean, that simultaneity of subject verb,
right,
and what you describe as the syntactical chaos is one of Dickinson's wonderful devices.
Right. And Axel referred to it earlier as semantic openness, which I guess when you call it semantic, you're talking, in my mind, you're talking a little bit more about the meaning of individual words. And when you call it syntactic, you're talking a little bit more maybe about the relationships. It's open in both cases, I would say.
Yeah. I would love to see a syntax tree of this poem.
Diagram?
Yeah, seriously.
No, not a diagram, a syntax tree.
Okay.
I mean, diagramming it would also be a bit of craziness, but
yeah, you have to have crossing lines.
And on that line, going back to Emily's comment and also the request for a diagram, I kept thinking about the line and rivers where the houses ran in my head. I needed to correct it so badly, and rivers ran where the houses were, as the past tense of are. So, but then I had to force myself to look the line as it is and maybe see for other openings of that, but kind of made some editing as a teacher in there, you know.
So what did you do, Bruna? Did you preserve the chaos?
I preserved the chaos. And now I need to go back and see the line if it allows an Albanian reader to do the same thinking that we had in here. Yeah, I think the line is vague enough for them to change the subjects around. And yeah.
Can you show us your translation? And maybe read it? I'd love to hear it.
So I will show what I have in a Word document, but that's not exactly, so it's more like what I have in here. That's the working draft. But I had to have the English on one side, so I have English on the left and Albanian on the right. Some of the things that are on the draft in here, I already changed in my head listening to this discussion, but I'll read it as it is. And I haven't worked on form, so I've only worked with meaning. I wanted to figure that out and then play around with the meaning to fit the form. Erdhi një erë si një bori që dridhej në përbar, dhe një tmerr i gjelbër mbi të nxehtin kaq ogurzi kaloi. Në mbyllëm dritaret dhe dyert, si prej një fantazme smeraldi. Mokasina elektrike e fatit në çast kaloi. Mbi një turm të çuditshme pemësh që gulçonin dhe garde që iknin tutje, dhe lumenj ku shtëpit vraponin, ata që jetuan pan atë ditë. Këmbana në këmbanoren e të shmendur, lajmet fluturuese tregoi. Sa shumë mund të vijë dhe shumë mund të shkojë, e prap të mbetet bota. I'm not happy with what I see in here. I want to go back and change so many things.
What are the real cruxes? What are the hard parts as you worked with them?
The hard parts that I worked with, I struggle a lot with forms, so that I haven't even touched. So that is something I'm scared to work on. So what do I do with a meter? And then I heard Renée talk about the meter before and experimenting with it. And then the rhyme would be a little easier once I figured the meter, but that I don't have much input today because I haven't worked on that. Regarding the meaning, the word mob was clarified, which was I was struggling before. To go back to what Axel mentioned, we do have the word for bugle, and I had learned the word bugle from Walt Whitman before, so it wasn't new to me, and I immediately had the Albanian version of it in my head that gives me the same impression as the bugle does. The word chill, green chill, that was discussed today, in addition to the fact that I've never seen a green sky and I wanted to try hard and imagine that and feel that threat or fear in there. But one word that I used for chill is the same word as for something terrible happening. So that's what I've chosen for that mer. I think it does give the same chills that the chill gives. I don't. And then I struggled with the preposition you mentioned earlier, then upon the heat. So I did use a preposition that means one on top of the other, but I'm not sure. I'm still like trying. I let it sit a little bit and went back to see, does it create the image that I thought I saw when I read the poem. Something I wasn't happy with is the word ominous in Albanian has part of the word has the color black in it. Ogurzizi is black. And then do I want to mess colors here, like introduce another idea of color that is black in there? That is something and I'm still searching for synonyms for the word ominous to avoid that unnecessary addition of a color in something that's so green.
I don't think so. Doesn't ominous, in my mind, that has black in it. I don't know why.
Well,
I think
Etymologically.
it's in the root. It has
yeah.
Yeah,
shadow,
shadow. That's what, yeah.
darkness
Yeah,
is in the
shadow and
word ominous.
darkness. But we have
Yeah.
a different word for shadow and darkness and another one for black.
Mm.
Yeah. I had a hard time visualizing the emerald ghost. So the line there doesn't feel much. I'm not happy with that line in Albanian. And then I left the word mocasina. Just like Axel, I don't recognize that kind of, it was new for me that it was a snake to start with, and then I don't recognize that, but I did think about lightning, like Saudamine mentioned earlier. One thing we talked about the word past. There's dit pas and past. I wouldn't be able to give that variation in Albanian because we don't use models for the past. So it has to be the same verb in the past. In there. And we did talk about the line that I thought a lot about, rivers where the houses ran. So it does have that ambiguity, although in my head I wanted a better syntax for that. One line that I like the variant better is those looked that lived that day, the living looked that day. I wish I could take that line out of translate it with that line. And what I
do you
did
like
in
better
there
about
is,
it, Bruna?
I feel like it gives me a better syntax to work with. The living looked that day. Those looked that lived that day.
That's one where I don't like the variant, I think. And the reason that I don't like it as much is because with the living looked, it seems like it's the living are contrasted to all the dead people who didn't see it, who were buried long before, who were already dead before the storm. Whereas with those looked that lived, the implication is that people died in the storm and they didn't get to see it. So I think that's why I like it better.
And as English speakers, what about the syntax of that? Those looked that lived that day. So there is some irregularity in there.
Yeah.
If we were to
It's
put it
very
in correct syntax, if that exists, like those that lived looked that day, is that right? Or am I reading
or
it?
those that lived that day looked
Looked, yeah.
something like that.
But I think as they've ridden out the storm,
Right.
and there's a sense of, okay, I felt my life with both my hands to
Right.
see if it was there. And so there's that sense of having survived and then looking out. So the living having now determined, okay, the storm has passed, then look out, and there's the initial look, and then there's the looking back and reflecting. I did want to say that I think in the word ominous, if you're looking for a different word to that eliminates black as a color, that something akin to the word omen, which is the root of ominous, might
yeah, that would ring
might
with the
work.
black. Yeah.
Yeah, something prophetic or yeah, dark
I'm really hearing biblical echoes in that those looked that lived that day, because that's such a huge part of the and I know Dickinson uses for none see God and live in other places, but I'm hearing that echo very, very, very strongly there.
Yeah, it's really interesting.
I mean, think about Elijah hiding in the cave and the wind swirling around, and then the still small voice. But the wind and the rain and the horrors outside the cave are just extraordinary. And then within the cave, Elijah hears the voice, and then is taken up in a fiery chariot.
I should have paid more attention in Sunday school. That's a great story.
I didn't learn that in Sunday school. Thank you very much.
So
a little Torah study, but yeah, when I was doing Sunday school, Elijah wasn't. But Elijah has a place at the Passover table, so we hear a lot about him in Judaism.
interesting. Yeah.
Well, it's Moses too. I know it
right
from
the
Exodus.
burning bush.
Yeah.
If I could say the line itself, the meter and the sound, the alliteration of those looked that lived, it's so magnetic and powerful. And so that's why I also prefer it. In fact, I don't know if that's translatable. I guess it's not.
But there's an L and a D tension. Those looked that lived that day.
Right.
There's and that is just yeah, I agree. Yeah. One of those, I mean, we're all playing editor here, but and I'd have to look at the manuscript to kind of see where that lives on the manuscript. But
Emily, you were also talking about the still small voice that Elijah hears, and I think that's one of the things that I find really compelling about those last three lines, is that they have that quality to me of a still small voice. Like they're so regular and quiet and reassuring, I would say. But also, I think Axel mentioned this, they're very weird, right? Like they're both reassuring and deeply strange. And what's the world that's abiding? It's very strange as well as very still and small somehow.
Well, and it's strange for Elijah because the stillness is in the midst of the storm, but it is the stillness comes as the storm rages outside the cave, and is only heard, and it's heard in all that chaos.
Right.
So I agree that it's got a you've got there's a sense of wonder, but there's also a sense of stillness that is hard won, if that makes sense.
Yeah, yeah.
That
Um,
it's, I mean, it's how much can come and much can go, and yet abide the world.
yeah. And in both the translations that we looked at, I don't know Turkish or Albanian, but I could visually see that we get that repetition of words in those last two lines, and then that very concluding line, um, in a way that's very. Lots of Dickinson's poems don't really have conclusive endings. I think it's pretty rare for her to have something like the Volta on a Shakespearean sonnet that just ties it all up. But this one really has that sense to me, which is one of the things I find interesting in it. And I could
Yeah.
see that in the two translations that we saw. Are there other people who have translations that they are willing to share? N- Nobody's volunteering. Lishan, did you think about if you were to translate what you would be challenged by or?
I actually do have a translation by my beloved Gemini. So,
Oh, okay.
so I
You
was
got
actually
Gemini to do
comparing
it.
notes here, thinking about how I could possibly one day outsmart my machine translator now.
Uh-huh.
It's so yeah, I do this translation here. The similar issues in terms of the special terms maxim here is translated into Chinese into deer skin shoes. So those kind of shoes are actually quite popular back home, and they're very like people love them. It represent taste and style, so it's a bit different from the kind of the indigenous Gothic or
Hmm.
hunting that's being used there. And also the term map, yeah, the strange map, that's another term that I think is difficult to translate in Chinese as well. So we have something here like the trees are, according to the version that's being translated by the machine, it has something to do with the trees behaving really weird, like they're almost sick. But I don't know, I just love the way it translates the emerald ghost. Because it's the firefly season here. There are a lot of green fireflies here. There are green and orange fireflies, and those green ones are really just like ghosts, but they're so beautiful and so fragile. And yeah, when I read that, I was thinking, oh, wow. But I guess there's also like the kind of very 19th century way of thinking about the sublime, the kind of a natural phenomena being turned into some kind of um yeah, aesthetical, almost pedagogical there. So yeah, I definitely agree with you. There's something in the ending that's reassuring, and I think the conclusion in the machine translation make it sound a bit more like surprising, like wow, the world still exists. But in the poem itself, I think that it's a slightly more reassuring, as if like the kind of survivorship is being guaranteed to some extent. And definitely, I agree with all the discussion about the religious connotations there. Although I was just mentioning to Excel that for me, there is also something very Zenish about the conclusion. There,
Yeah.
as if the monk is sitting in the middle of
Yeah.
the storm and then making this very Zenish comment, like, oh, the world comes and
I
goes,
love
and
that.
yeah, we stay or I stay, or well, the monk is supposed to be selfless, so it's not I stay, but the world stays. I don't know. I'm also intrigued by the word choice here. Why the world? what does the world refer to? Because she always talks about the world, right? This is my letter to the world, but who is the world there?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And she often explained in those early letters her resistance to Christianity by saying she just didn't want to give up the world.
Right. So maybe the world is more related to something not that religious.
I think so. I mean, what does she say? She doesn't want to go to paradise because she'd rather stay in the curious earth.
Yeah.
Right. 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 Oh yeah, the she also talk about how the world is she's being seduced, or she's almost on the side of the Satan.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm one of the lingering bad ones, when she says. I just wanted to put this, if it'll work, to share the manuscript. Did that come up?
It's coming up.
Yeah. Okay. It's there.
Okay, so here's the manuscript from the Dickinson Electronic Archive. And if we look at these lines, so this is the second page of it. On a strange mob of panting trees and fences fled away, and rivers where the houses ran, those looked that lived that day. No real discernible line breaks, right? She just goes right over to the margin. That's a paragraph. And then it continues, the bell within the steeple wild, the flying tidings told. Now, this is 1883, and her manuscripts are all like this at this point. So I don't know if there's too much significance to it. And yet, when you get to the end, how much can come and much can go, all of a sudden very neatly aligned to emphasize the repetitions, the repeated syntax and the repeated words, as though all that storminess and that syntactic dislocation has completely been reined in, and yet abide the world, and then remain.
Right. It's interesting too to see it there. It even has a comma and an exclamation point, like normie
Yes.
punctuation right at the end.
Right. And much can go, comma. As though, a comma is a pause, right?
Right.
that teach you in the second grade. Think of a comma as a pause. Well, no, it's not. But there's such a visual difference between these lines and these.
Right. Yeah.
Dan, I'm trying to look at the manuscript. Where is the alternate to that line we were discussing? Because it looks like there's also a transcription in someone else's handwriting.
Yeah. Okay. So this is the poem is on two, and I'm just looking at this now, but the poem is on 2 pages, and in between the 2 pages, there's something written upside down that I can't turn my screen upside down. The
living look.
No, the living looked that day. That's right. And then here's the first one. There came a wind like a bugle. And there are no variants on this page. And so here it has only those 2 variants. Oh, those looked that lived that day. So those looked that lived that day, the variant comes on the prior page.
Mm-hmm.
As though she had already maybe sewn them together and then turned the page and scrawled something in for herself.
Right, and yet it's a loose sheet. These are housed in
these
Amherst.
are loose sheets, of course. Yeah, these are loose sheets. Yeah.
But I'm one, the version that Copeland set. I'm trying to remember what he ended up with. That there was some changes that may have been done by the editors. I'm not happy with this new version of the archive, by the way.
Yeah, and I'm not either, but
It's very, very difficult to navigate.
yeah, and I've just been telling myself it's a question of getting used to it, but I'm slow.
Well, I just
Slow.
found the open full screen viewer, but it's
There we go.
yeah, there's a and then this is an entirely different hand.
Yes, right. So what is that?
That
This is
I'm
somebody's.
guessing that's a transcription by someone.
Yeah.
It doesn't say who that I can find.
So I'm interested to see that on that transcription, it has world, WHIRLD, the Flying Tidings world, which I also found in a couple of places when I was looking at the poem. And I can't understand where it comes from. Whose pencil is that?
Oh, yeah.
Well, let's see what
I would think that that's Mabel. She went through and made things rhyme.
Right.
and
That
she
seems
also changed it to those that looked that day. She changed it to the alternate.
Uh-huh.
And the living looked that day.
Right. The
right.
living looked that day.
Um,
But somewhere it's going to tell me whose transcription that is, but I'm not
yeah, that's what
finding
I'm
it
trying to
yet.
find.
Yeah. All right. I'm gonna close my share because I can't see anybody anymore.
Yeah, there was a note there in pencil somewhere when you were scrolling now, then. I couldn't see it, but I saw the word in pencil. So maybe it has the information in there.
Yeah. But I think that's just about the poem itself rather than
Okay.
the transcription.
Mhm.
So in the Chris Miller edition, there are 3 variants. The one with bubbles, I think.
The
It
Yeah,
quivered
quiver,
as
drew,
well,
or
say
bubble
quiver.
ran. Yeah.
bubbling.
Yeah, it's a variant for quivered.
Mm,
It
I didn't
quivered,
see
it
that in
bubbled.
the. Mm.
It looks like the transcription this appeared in Bingham,
Ah.
so maybe it's not Mabel, maybe it's Millicent.
Okay. That certainly could be.
Because the paper looks a little bit later. Um,
The handwriting also looks kind of 20th century. I can see
mhm.
that.
I found that bubbled in
And Mabel did
very.
transcriptions in on a typewriter.
Oh, okay. Okay. Then I bet you're right. I found we're in the weeds here that may not be so interesting for everybody, but I found the bubbled in variant. It's written upside down at the top of the margin at the very beginning of the poem.
Oh.
That's terrible. I just bubbled. I think quivered is so much better than
Yeah,
bubbled.
yeah.
Like, why would you add bubbled? Bubbles sound so cheerful and like, I don't know.
Well, yeah, quivered
And
through the
why
grass
whirled?
prepares for the snake, the serpent. The
Right.
moccasins are more often in the water.
Right. And everything. The bugle is like an attack. It's do they did like fox hunters blow bugles before they go chasing after the foxes and kill them? I think they do, in my mind. I think it's a very attacky horn. It's like a hunting horn or an attacky horn. And quiver has all of that. Um,
Well, a hunting horn is slightly different from a bugle.
yeah, but they're the same in my mind.
Okay, well, that's what you know about brass instruments, huh?
Exactly. Nothing. Not even as much as I know about Elijah.
As a fourth generation band member.
Yeah, hunting horns are French horn shaped, aren't they? I'm just looking at it, but that's what I picture. It's
Yeah.
it's a
And
bugle, but
usually
coiled
hunting
like
imagery has the rounded horn,
yeah,
It usually does,
not
but
the
I was
not
looking in the OED
yeah.
at bugle, and that word
Tons.
originally means an ox horn, which
Mm.
apparently they originally blew an ox horn when they were hunting foxes or rousing
Wow.
military troops. So it was an etymology thing that was connecting it for me,
so it
not
has
a
an origin in the shofar as well.
right. Yeah, exactly.
Mm.
I was
We
thinking
have
about
we have drifted far, far
From
away.
Latin buculus, ox. That's right. Okay. Renee, maybe I'm not sure how long we normally go, but Renee, why don't you go ahead and
Mm.
take this away from these really weedy questions?
Well, before I do, are there any other translators who want to mention translations that they?
Yeah. Or just details that were vexing.
Yeah, I was just going to say something. I was thinking about the word bubble actually. And in Turkish, it actually kind of made sense to me because there's a word that can mean bubble, but at the same time like a burn, like a water burning underground, like getting ready to emerge, to rise up. So I was thinking whether she was thinking of the wine in that way. Maybe was that the kind of image she had in mind. I actually tried to find a word that was somewhere between quiver and bubble, but I finally I ended up going for quiver. But that's something that I thought about. And just I was so I have a list of the word bugle in her letters and poems. So actually, it's a word that she for the first time used in an 1859 poem, "Heart Not So Heavy as Mine." This is the first time she mentions the word bugle. And the next time is 19 years later in 1878, "Death is the Supple Suitor." And then we have the poem we have, "There Came a Wind Like a Bugle." And from that point on, it's very, very frequent until October 1885. So I was just wondering why she just in her letters especially, and just after Gilbert's death, in the same year, in a letter to Sue, she references she writes she mentions Bugle as complete life, as the brief, bright, self-completing horn call that winds itself away. So there's also the metaphor of wind and winding away. So there's something happening there from 1883 and onwards. She's I think explicitly thinking about the winds and bugles and all that represents for her. And I was just wondering whether it is also related with some sort of sadness for her, that she's sort of realizing in a certain sense that she's approaching the end of her life. Is she thinking about that? Is there some sort of I mean, after all the things, all the horrible things that are happening, and she's not feeling so well, and she seems to be going to the bugles more and more frequently towards the end of her life. I thought that was something interesting. Just looking up the bugles in her poems and letters. So just something I wanted to say. And in the last letter to Sarah Tuckerman, she references the bugle as the Corinthians' resurrection trumpet. So there's something eschatological happening also. So I just think that this is I just like learning one object in every Dickinson and letter, and just see what that means for her in her entire letters and poems. I think this is something really interesting.
That's great.
That's interesting
I would
because
also like
emerald
to
is also a symbol of resurrection
Hmm.
biblically.
Oh,
I would also like to add one thing about the bugle bubble thing, because I'm thinking about bugle, bubble, and bell in the in the poem, they're all referencing some kind of sound. I was told actually by a student of mine who just did his thesis on Dickinson's musical imagination, and he's a pianist. So he told me that bobble is actually a technique of some sort, like playing on the keyboard, characterized by a syncopated staccato rhythm on the off beats, create a bubbly dancing feel. So I thought it was quite interesting why Dickinson would be sort of like alternating between words that seem to be a lot more sinister and scary, and something that seemed to be mysteriously lively and rebellious and spirited. Yeah.
So when I was a child, we spent in the summer our summer place in Norway. The guy next door was he had been a bugler in the Marines, I think, in World War II. And every night, it's just such a fond memory for me, but every night he would play that taps melody at sunset, which was a Marine thing to do. So you play the bugle, you play taps, and it means it's not the hunting metaphor, but it means time for bed, the sun is going down, it's time to quiet down. It's that melody. I don't know if it's familiar.
Day is done,
Right.
gone the sun, from the lake, from the fields, from the sky. All is well, safely rest, God is nigh.
There, you've got it. Thank you,
Wonderful.
Emily. Yeah.
My father
So
played the bugle, and in the Navy for a time, and that was taps that we sang in choir. But that's and I have a cousin, retired military, who does reveille and with the raising of the flag and taps every evening when we're at the beach.
so that's similar to my summer memories of
Yeah,
yeah.
he insists that, I mean, it is part of his daily practice to,
Right.
he has it now on his phone and
Um,
just plays it. But I mean, we are all assembled for reveille. We are all assembled for taps, and it is the final piece of a burial, a military burial.
yeah, it's what they play at the graveside.
Hmm.
But Bugle doesn't only play taps, it plays reveille too, right? And so
Hmm.
I think uh, the reason that I wanted to talk about this poem as I've been thinking about the apocalypse is because I had a sense of the storm as a wake-up call, like a reveille, like a wake up, get ready, and also an attack,
Hmm.
like, okay, it's coming at us or we're coming at it, but it's a very violent wake-up call. And then at the same time, I did have the sense in those last lines of day is done kind of a bugle, right? So it's both a tune of wake up, be aware, um, and then the doom right in the middle seems apocalyptic, right? It's a doom is a judgment. That's also a final ending, right? It's like, yeah,
Hmm.
you're being judged and yeah, you suck, right? Like your doom is that you learn how bad you are or were. So for me, in this moment of climate change, when we're sort of experiencing storms like this more than we used to, um, it I've just been fascinated by both meanings of apocalypse, right? Or revelation, whichever word you use. They both have those double meanings of like a catastrophic everything dying, blowing up, ending all over kind of thing. That's one meaning. And on the other side, it also means an unveiling, a revelation of truth, a waking up, a coming to consciousness. And I think it's crazy that that word has both of those meanings. I think the storm has both of those meanings here too. And then I really agree with Li Xin that the ending resolves, and maybe this is what Emily was saying with Still Small Voice, but it ends in a very Buddhist way with a sense of the what's revealed is something abiding, that something will abide, even though there's a lot of doom, a lot of like the bad kind of doom, right? The bad judgment. There's a lot of that and a lot of violence and the houses all run away and stuff like that. And yet there's also a sense that something abides that I find very reassuring, I would say. It gives me courage in a time of climate change, to think that there are things that abide, the world abides, and that also we can look at the chaos. We can certainly and should see the violence and the scariness, but we can also, I think, see the strangeness and the possibilities. I feel like all of that is here in a really meteorological way that I was really drawn to for this one. So yeah, thank you so much, Emily, for singing Taps, because that mood, I think she consciously gets to at the end where she starts to sound like Longfellow, and the bugle tune starts to be really very, very peaceful, in a way that I find quite comforting. I have to say, I also love thinking about the chaos too, right? So I like the
Well,
chaos.
and in the chaos of battle, the
Right,
bugle calls are they're each unit
right, has their own.
has its own, and if you're in the midst of battle, there's a way in which the bugle call of the unit brings people to the place, if they need to regroup. And then there are also certain signals that go out, in the midst of battle. So the bugler's role is to essentially, I mean, it's like a border collie
Herding people
in
together.
herding
Right,
sheep. That
right,
I mean, if you think about the whistles, the signals that a herder will use, with the collie that says, the border collie that says, okay, do this, do that. The same thing is happening on the battlefield with the bugle. So the reveille begins the day. Everybody get up, assemble. In battle, there are various calls that signal certain movement or actions. And then at the end of the day, the closing of the day, God is nigh, which is the moving toward the Longfellowish tone that you're talking about.
right,
Right.
right. Yeah, but here it's not an actual bugle. It's like the planet, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's the world. It's the whole earth, like bugling at us,
Mm-hmm.
like asking us, yeah, to wake up and be aware and face the chaos, and also maybe come together. Um,
Can I
yeah,
just add just a small thing? One of the things that I noticed that there was a kind of an echo in that line, those look that live that day. And in your discussion, I was kind of thinking, where is this echo? But I think it's actually Henry V. I think it's that
Mm-hmm.
speech about St. Crispin's Day
right. Yeah,
that he gives that day, that day. So it kind of
right,
follows on from what you've been saying about this kind of call to arms or living beyond an event, because this is
right.
what he says to the men, as they're charging into battle. So I just thought that actually fitted. I knew there's an echo there, but I
Right.
think it's
Mm-hmm.
Stand
actually of Henry V.
Yeah.
We'll stand a tiptoe when this day is named and rouse him at the name of Crispian. He that shall, I can't quite get it, but I can definitely hear that.
Yeah, definitely.
And it would be
Yeah.
so like Dickinson to blend Shakespeare and the Bible.
Yeah, right.
And I was
I
just
don't
thinking,
know,
so
Axel or Bruna, if we've helped you with
well, I hope it helps
translation.
others as well. I mean, we're not the only
At least send.
translators, I hope, but I was just thinking that it's kind of ironic that it's the bell who's telling basically that it's the world that will abide, and it's like Dickinson is turning this around in sort of way, in a religious way, that the
Yeah.
bells are telling us that the yet abide the world. I think it's amazing. But yeah. But yeah, hopefully it will help everyone else working on this poem if they did to translate it. I think this is a project of mine to just pick one Emily Dickinson poem and translate it maybe 100 times and put them in a single book, and just a single book from a single poem. I think it's possible because there are so many different ways of translating every line, and then to see all the combinations and see what that would make as a book. This is something that I already mentioned in previous sessions, Bruno, you'll remember, but I think there are so many possibilities. So thank you very much for this wonderful discussion, and
Thank you, Axel.
Yeah,
Thank you, Axel,
Thank you.
and
And
Bruna
congratulations on your election to the
Thank
board.
you. Thank you very much.
Or should I say condolations?
Thank you. So I think,
everybody.
yeah, we can say goodbye for this
Yes.
session.
Bye.
Thank you so much.
Bye. Bye. Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you all.
Possibility.
Thank you.
Goodbye.
Bye.